Welcome to Fandom Post Radio. I am Kestrel, and this time we're talking about Anime Expo. So we have a slightly different crew. We have the people who went there. So we have Darius,
Hello, how are you doing?
and we have Skyler.
Hey everyone.
So yeah, Anime Expo is a big event, perhaps too big, almost certainly too big. So we'll have plenty to talk about from the 4 very packed days of that. It's a lot of news, obviously, as with every year. There's lots of news from that convention. So if you feel like you don't care about hearing people talk about an anime convention that you didn't go to, that's fine. There's plenty of news to talk about as well, and just good insights from the panels. So yeah, we will get into some of that. Talk about our own experiences and what came out of it, and general thoughts on the convention. So yeah, I'll start us off with some news. Some of this was actually before the convention, but this first piece of news tied in pretty deeply to it, because they clearly announced this right before the convention so that they could promote it heavily there, which they did do that. And that was Toho Animation's announcement of a new Spice and Wolf reboot anime. It's coming next year. It's going to be by the studio Passione. They've got a trailer out for it that they were going heavily throughout the convention. The music is going to be done by Kevin Penkin, who's, of course, famous for Made in Abyss and several other recent anime series with very good music. He seems to be paying homage to the original soundtrack quite a bit. And they are bringing back the original lead Seiyu. So that's definitely welcome because everyone loves them as Polo and Lawrence.
Did they confirm that it was going to be a full reboot?
Yeah, they did.
I hadn't heard that part. I'm curious if it'll go beyond where the original anime covered.
Right, that's certainly the hope. Like, I'm sure they don't have that guaranteed yet, but I hope it does well enough for that because the material is very good, and the light novels are technically still running, but essentially those first 17 volumes are all you really need to cover. So yeah, if they can do well enough they can get those first 17 volumes in however many seasons it takes, that would be ideal because yeah, the content is very good. I don't think it looks great for a brand new 2024 reboot. The studio hasn't impressed me all that much in the past either, so I'm not too surprised. It's kind of a bummer because Spice Wolf anime has never looked great, and it deserves to. So yeah, too bad to see, but hopefully it improves as it goes along.
Yeah, Passione's his work seems very standard from what I recall.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, nothing especially impressive, but nothing go-handsy.
Yeah. Yeah, so serviceable adaptation of the source material, which was basically what we had gotten before. It would be nice to have more than that, but again, hopefully it's just successful enough that we get enough of it to really justify the reboot, because if it's just the same stuff over and over again, the original was already in the digital era. It's not going to look or feel that much different, so it doesn't really justify its existence if they can't cover more material.
I'm just surprised that they're doing a continuation after all these years. The original anime is well over a decade old now.
Well, I mean, I think that's funny. I kind of have the reverse side of this in the last piece of news I had on this doc. But yeah, it's like right at that spot where you could either continue or reboot. And yeah, I could have seen it go either way at this point. They did like a VR anime thing a few years ago. I didn't really hear anything about that, but it existed, whatever it was. And yeah, I could have easily seen them pick up where they left off, but I guess it has been enough of a gap that it makes sense to just start over at this point.
Yeah, so here's hoping it gets more than one core.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, another piece of news that this is one that I guess it was announced in Japan like right around the time that AX started, and since I was so busy all week, I didn't find out about it until I was catching up on news online like a week later. But there was a new season of Natsume Eugene Cho, Natsume's Book of Friends announced. So this is one of those ones that has been around for almost as long as Spice and Wolf. And every few years we get another couple seasons added on. So we're going on season 7 now for this new one. I think that's about all we know about it. In addition to the 6 seasons, it had a movie that was released by Aniplex. Yeah, Aniplex of America did that over here on Blu-ray. All the seasons have been streamed on Crunchyroll, and the first 4 were released by NIS America when they were doing anime. So 5 and 6 still haven't had any physical releases over here. So hopefully that changes and they can all be consistently released in the same region. I guess no other Natsume fans here.
Never seen the franchise. I know the name.
Excuse me.
It's very good. All right, then we're getting into some AX news here, so we can.
If I made it one bit of non-AX news that was pretty important in the world of anime, if I may.
Yeah.
The original creator of Irresponsible Captain Tyler, also he passed. Hitoshi Yoshioka. He passed away on January. In January 13th, and nobody talked about it for a very long time. But but this news just recently came to light. He had passed away, and nobody knew that. Like I said, nobody knew that he had gone. He also was the creator of Suikoden Demon Sentry and Idol Defense Force Hummingbird, the novel series. And I was like, wow. I was pretty surprised they managed to keep this news from us, or from anybody for so long. But yeah.
The family probably wanted their privacy.
Yeah, Japan is.
They were able to get it, considering how often these turn into media circuses.
Yeah. Like, usually it's like, I don't know, a week to a month. But Japan is much better about keeping, public figures' deaths under wraps, so that their family can have privacy. And by the time that anyone else knows, it's old news. There's nothing really to bug them about.
Yeah.
So it's always good to see that, like, good that we didn't know about it for half a year, because that meant that, the family didn't have a bunch of people bugging them.
Yeah, that's true. So yes, he is no longer with us, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, but yes, I'm sorry. Please continue with the AX segments here.
So again, we can kind of jump in and talk about our experiences and other things about the convention as we go. But the first kind of notable piece of news that I thought we could cover was from the Trigger panel, which was fairly early on the first day, which maybe was my problem, because that was like the one thing I really wanted to go to on the first day, and I was kind of, I don't know, more optimistic that I would get into it than I should have been. I guess I needed to relearn every year how impossible it is to get into anything at this convention. Because for those who don't know, it's 115,000 attendees.
That's the official count.
Well, all right, that's a good point. We don't really know what they cap it at. The last reported number was 115,000 in 2019, and since then they have capped attendance.
Okay.
I don't think anyone has, made the claim that it feels any smaller than it did in 2019
Didn't seem like
since
it.
then. Right.
Yeah.
Once you get to hundreds of thousands of people, kind of hard to gauge, within a margin of error of, 1 to 10%.
What I heard was they've had to cap it because of fire codes, so
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's gone any higher than that.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah,
Like,
healthy.
once you cap it, it's not going to be higher than the last number you got to. That
A couple of times, as I understand it, the fire marshal wouldn't let people in.
right.
A couple of times, like, oh, you got 20 people here already. You're like, but we have.
Yeah, is that when you were trying to get in, Skyler?
It was.
Yeah.
So I guess we could talk about that now.
Sure. Yeah.
They had two main entrances for their general attendees.
Mm-hmm.
I was standing at one of them for at least half an hour. They weren't letting anyone in. And the con staff said that they had capped it. They had capped it, and we had to wait until people left because the convention centers had capacity.
Wow.
But then I followed a rumor and checked out the other entrance. Took me just a few minutes to walk over there. People were walking right in with no line.
Wow.
Yep, I heard that story a lot.
No indication of the convention center being at capacity. No, nothing.
Yeah, that's kind of the AX paradigm, especially at this point. Like, way too big, can't really manage itself, can't really accommodate everyone. You just kind of have to, follow rumors you hear and shortcuts and, find your own little cheat codes that you can exploit to get around and get to what you need to.
Eat the fifth.
So, yeah. It's, I had a press badge. So one thing that, you mentioned being a normal attendee, general attendee, they did away with the premier registration this year.
Yep.
Which was, one thing that allowed people to, kind of pay to win, get into the stuff they actually wanted to, or at least have a better shot at it, by having, express access and stuff like that. Got rid of that. Got rid of the few like ticketed events they had last year. Last year it was just like a few Aniplex events mainly, I think, in the main events room where you didn't have to pay for anything. It was just first come first serve. You select the ticket, and that way they knew exactly how many people were going to be in that room. If you didn't get a ticket, you didn't show up. That worked just fine. Didn't have any of that this year. They also didn't do like almost any room clears unless it was like an 18 plus thing where they had to check ID. Almost zero room clears, especially in the main events room, which is the hardest one to get into. So, we already learned this last year and probably years prior, but basically, if you want to be in something in main events, you kind of got to camp in that room all day because other people are going to be doing that. They're not going to be leaving. So it's a bad system because not only do you have to miss out on things that you want to go to, everyone or the people who actually want to be at an event can't necessarily get into it because other people are taking up the spots to camp for the next event.
If you trained at San Diego Comic-Con, especially Hall H, you've trained for this.
The one problem with clearing rooms like that is if they did do it, then people wouldn't be able to go to consecutive events functionally because you have to line up at least an hour in advance.
Exactly. So there's no real win-win in that situation, which I think that's why I think like the ticketed system is the only way to really make that work with, that room holds like, I don't know if they said 5,000 people. It's a lot of people.
That's about right.
But compared to 115,000, like not all of those people are going to want to go to every event, of course, but a decent enough percentage that 5,000 is a tiny fraction of the people who would be interested. So if you can be like, yeah, you need a ticket to get in, you don't have to pay for it, you just have to do first come, first serve. Or, the other option, like, this is a problem. This convention's too big. The real solution is they need to cap attendance way earlier, like 50,000 people earlier. Because this caps last minute and it's a shit show. And they wouldn't be able to maybe put on as big of events as they do if the attendance wasn't so absurdly high. But it kind of makes it awful for everyone who's there in a lot of ways. So if they cap the attendance way, way, way fucking earlier, um, then it might be doable. But yeah, another option at this point is make everything lottery, which is awful.
Yes, we've been
Because
through that.
that like the big Comic Cons do that for stuff. Anime NYC does that now for everything, and it's awful and it doesn't work, and they issue public apologies because it's awful. But yeah, that is a way to make it so that you're not just subject to waiting all day in line or camping in a panel and not letting anyone else in, or having to be there at the first second the tickets go on quote unquote sale, not really on sale. And the reason Anime NYC switched to the lottery system for events, for panels, is because they tried their first come, first serve ticketing system with Hajime Isayama, and it broke Protix or JoeClicks or whatever they were using. And so then they last minute switched to lottery for everything. And that sucked and disappointed a lot of people. And like I alluded to, they issued an apology about it. So it's not great. None of these solutions are great. The convention is too big for what the convention center can hold and what the rooms can hold. And I think like at least based on like size, the DC, the Walter E. Washington Convention Center for Otakon is like substantially bigger than the AX one, and they have like a fraction of the attendance. And that's why you can actually like get around at Otakon and go to things and not just be in this horrible fire hazard, health hazard sea of humans at all times.
Yeah, they still have to manage. They're having to learn how to manage some lines themselves. Otakon does. I witnessed that firsthand last year. Roughly, they were about 42,000 roughly, and they went through some growing pains, but I think they've learned quite a bit just from that.
Yeah, Otakon definitely went up in attendance last year, so yeah, I'll be interested to see what it's like this year. But it's still like AX is just so in a league of its own.
Yeah.
Like, the next biggest conventions are all a third to a quarter of its size in terms of attendee count, and some of them at bigger convention centers. And it seems like all AX does every year is take away more opportunities to mitigate these hazards, like Premiere and the room clears and the ticketed events and all those things. So and the autograph line situation, I'll touch upon that after we get through all the like news and stuff.
My condolences.
Ooh, that is a thing. So yeah, this convention is a problem to attend if you have a lot of things that you want to go to, and two, especially if you have ethics and want to follow all the rules, because those do not make. Yeah, so I've used my press badge when I needed to. I I used it legitimately for a whole 5 minutes interviewing Masao Maruyama. And I guess technically this podcast is kind of me exercising my press. I don't know. But technically I didn't really use my press credentials for press purposes outside of that interview. But when lines were so absurd that I knew I wouldn't be able to get into the convention center in time for something, yeah, I'd go in the press entrance. I don't have any shame left, not for AX. So about where I'm at with that.
The con owners don't have any shame, neither should we.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good.
So it's the unfortunate reality. Can't really have a real ironclad code of ethics and still try to get to everything you care about at AX if what you care about is lots of big panels and events and autographs and stuff like that. You just want to hang out and like cosplay and take pictures, you're probably doing okay. If you want to like go to the exhibit hall, stay home for 3 days and then check it out on Tuesday. You try to go first thing on day one. That is just the worst sea of people imaginable. So if you need to get that first exclusive item that's going to sell out in the first hour, poof, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, all of that said, I did not get into Trigger because I did not learn my lesson from last year and did not abuse my permissions early and fiercely enough.
That was a cool
So
panel.
yeah, that's what I hear. In fact, I heard it firsthand because so they had this whole waiting area outside. There's like an area under shade for most of the sea of people. At that area, it was basically no line, just a giant mob of people. And then once that overflowed, there was like a snaking line in the blazing sun at a cool 85-degree LA sun. So once you got to that part, at least for Trigger, because like Trigger has their own kind of cult. Like no one quite matches them in terms of fan base. Maybe like the big Crazy Idol fans in some context, but if you're talking about like studios, industry stuff, nothing's gonna match Trigger.
Yeah.
So I should have
Yeah.
known once I was in that overflow area, it wasn't happening. So I eventually got into the closed off area with the shade, and I was in the middle of that mob of people, and the panel was like well underway at this point. So I went over to the inside entrance to be like, "Hey, can we get in? Any room for press?" And they were like, "No." Also, lot of miscommunication and people not being on the same page. This is every convention every year, but especially AX with the attendee to staff/volunteer ratio, and I think a lot of their staff like quit in the past year.
Ouch.
And there's a lot of new volunteers that don't necessarily know everything that they need to know, and nobody ever knows everything they need to know. Nobody ever communicates everything. Again, every convention, it's probably impossible with the number of attendees that show up to these things. And
Although,
then, yeah, go ahead.
I spoke to someone who's a volunteer there, and he mentioned the convention center this year insisted on using more of their staff versus
Okay.
and staff.
Interesting.
See, that's what I was about to say. Was also there's the convention staff, the security, the people who don't necessarily know what an Anime Expo is, and don't know the specific rules or what the industry companies want to enforce or not. And a lot of the times, yeah, they were the ones. They were the only ones in front of entrances, and so if you tried to like show up and be like, "Hey, I have a seat RSVP'd for Crunchyroll at this event," they don't know what the fuck you're talking about. They're either being told not to let anyone in or to let anyone with a non-regular badge in, regardless of any context. So it depended wildly on who I ran into at any given moment. I technically RSVP'd to a bunch of panels. None of that ever mattered.
Really?
It was always either yes. It was always either no, nobody gets let in, or your press, sure, whatever, come in. So again, convention center staff didn't necessarily know the nuances of what the individual companies had planned for their individual panels and who was allowed in or who had reserved seats or whatever.
So my experience has been the people who actually volunteer for Anime Expo don't know a lot, but they know more than the convention center staff and the outside security companies they hire.
Exactly. Yeah. So this one for Trigger, I went up and it was just security people left there. There's no one who had any ties to Anime Expo or Trigger or any of that. So I was like, "Hey, can I get be a press?" And they were like, "No, the room is completely capped." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting because there is 1,000 people waiting out there, and we have not been told a single thing about being capped." So I went back over, waded my way through the sea of people, and within a few minutes, someone came by and told everyone that it was capped. I wanted to go to the next event anyway. And, I tried to keep some little flicker of hope alive for getting into this one. The next panel was Netflix, which, had all the Pluto stuff, which I knew about. So that was, going to be my destination either way. Again, you need to be there in the panel beforehand. So I stayed there. Maybe half the people left the line. A lot of people stayed there for, either to be in the next panel or to try to get into Trigger. And I, made my way up to the very front of the line. I think at some point before they let us in, they decided that this mass of people was now a set of orderly lines, which means that the people that you were standing next to are now in a completely different line than you, and they will not go in with you. So that was another mess. But anyway, I made my way to the very front, which only meant that I got to experience all of the uproarious applause for every little thing that happened at the Trigger panel without any context as to what was actually happening. So I was like desperately refreshing Twitter threads to see what just got announced or revealed or shown that everyone is losing their minds about. So that is perhaps the worst possible position you could be in for a Trigger panel. But anyway, of the kind of announcements they made, like I wanted to be there because one, it's Trigger, it's always a good time. Two, Imaishi was there. Three, they were showing the first episode of Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon, which is not being shown until next year in any other capacity. That's when it's being released on Netflix.
Yeah, we got to watch that,
and I really wanted to see that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was one weird show. I mean,
I've heard really good things about the manga, so I really.
That was.
I've heard that too.
It was bizarre. Okay, I'm kind of used to Trigger having a, for lack of a better phrase, an exaggerated style. Like for, say, Gurren Lagann or Promare, or this really exaggerated style of character designs and movements and stuff. That wasn't happening here.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty specifically Imaishi's style. So anything he directed, whether it was at Gainax or Trigger, or even his one movie at Production IG, has that style. And, as kind of the chief creative force behind Trigger, a lot of the other staff kind of emulates that. But there is a decent amount of Trigger stuff that Imaishi was not heavily involved in that doesn't really have that classic exaggerated style. So I'm not surprised.
This one...
Or at least not to the same degree as the stuff Imaishi directs himself.
Yeah, it was this really... Yeah. It's this really weird show where basically this guy ends up getting a couple of people, and they go into this dungeon where his sister is trapped, and he has this whole thing of he really wants to kill monsters and eat them. And I'm like, okay. No matter... So yeah, if it's a giant dragon, he wants to kill it and eat it. Regardless of whether it might be poisonous or not, or the meats actually mix with the human body or whatever, which they get into heavy discussion about. And it's really... Oh, what are the food animes? Toriko or... my brain's not working. Food Wars, stuff like that. It's kind of a mix of that and Dungeons and Dragons.
That's kind of what I figured.
That's what this show is. It's goofy, a little bit goofy. They meet this one guy who's kind of like the burly chef of the crew. He joins them on their quest. But I get the impression that a lot of the episodes are going to be them talking about the best ways to cook whatever they just ran into, and how they taste, and keep it moving. It was like it's like no anime I've ever seen. I will admit, and in this era of lots of isekai, this was kind of refreshing. So I am looking forward to the show Yes, and they had two of the lead voice actors there talking about the roles. Sayaka Shinobuji, voice of Marseille, sorry, and Kentaro Munagi, voice of Laos, the lead main character. And it was, like I said, it was fun. It was fun. I'm definitely looking forward to when it shows up on Netflix at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. They did the same kind of thing last year. They premiered the first episode of Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which was also a Netflix show. That, of course, came out like 2.5 months later, not 6 months later, like this is going to. So, this is a very advanced showing. So, yeah, I wanted to see that. Not that we knew when it was coming out until this panel, I think. But I wanted to check it out anyway. It would have been fun to be there for the whole world premiere. And they teased that, there was going to be some more information about the new Pantheon stocking, because they, mic dropped that at the end of their panel last year. That, there's going to be some new Pantheon stocking that was going to be done by Trigger. And we basically haven't heard anything about it since then. And still not a ton about it.
They didn't really say much about Panty stocking. Let's see, Shigeto Koyama is the director. The rights were initially at Studio Gainax, and then they got transitioned to Trigger. That's why it's taken so long to come back to it. By the way, you may see pictures of something that says "New Panty and Stocking." That is not the official title. That is just a working title that they have. Let's see what else here.
Well, I wasn't at the Trigger panel, but they also discussed this at the A1 Pictures Aniplex panel. They're re-releasing the Gurren Lagann movies.
Yeah. So that was
we talked about that.
The news that I was eventually getting to.
I'm sorry. Well, I'll let you talk about that part then.
So they said So they said the movies are going to be in 4D.
Yes, it's a 15th anniversary tour. I'm sorry, Kestrel or Skyler. If you wanted to discuss that part, I'll defer to you.
Yeah. So basically, they had teased this about the panel as well. With Imaishi there, they're regaining all the old Gainax stuff that this team did before they formed Trigger, that a lot of people kind of consider Trigger, even though technically the studio didn't exist yet. So, namely, those are Gurren Lagann and Panty and Stocking. And, we got the thing about Panty and Stocking last year. It would have been fucking wild if there was like a new Gurren Lagann anime at this point. I'm totally cool with that being complete, and they don't need to do that again.
Yeah. And this gives people a chance to see the movies, in case they missed them before. I don't think they've ever been available for streaming. And even
none that I know of. They've been strictly hard media at this point.
Even though they're mostly recap, there's enough original stuff in them, and that it's actually fun to watch. Particularly the second one.
Right.
When you got guys throwing galaxies at each other, okay, I got to see this on a big screen, man. This is too damn good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they did say, they did say one thing about the distribute. I couldn't entirely catch exactly which will go where, but the movie will tour North America, Japan, and Taiwan, and there were different iterations of 4D that they're going to disperse them with. And the thing is though, it's like, okay, these are two movies. These are both two full-length feature films. So like, are they gonna have like two night dates or?
Yeah, they'll probably have them on different nights. They might do some double features.
Let's see. And Sushio is the animation director, and Sushio has this brand new key visual, and it's the first one he's ever done for Gurren Lagann for Trigger. That was one thing that they really harped on.
Yeah. So I mean, this was all kind of, you know, nothing really substantial. Objectively, like they're making a big deal about the fact that they get to draw a new picture and say that it's currently on a trigger, which whatever, it doesn't mean anything. But yeah, we're getting these recap movies again. They've got some cool new animation. If you've only seen the series, it's what the series does. It goes bigger, and if you thought that the end of the series was as big as it gets, nope. The second movie goes bigger, so worth checking out for that reason. And yeah, should be fun on a big screen. I know that they specifically said like Taiwan would get just regular 2D showings. Hopefully the US doesn't only get 4D. I mean, I guess that's fun, but 4D basically just means they try to turn the movie into an amusement park ride, which I guess is fun for a Trigger movie, but I kind of want to go to a movie and not an amusement park ride. So I wouldn't mind if they just had a regular showing that I could see on a nice big screen.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sold on 4D.
Yeah.
You might also limit the number of theaters it can be in.
Yeah.
Because not every theater is going to have that capability.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw Top Gun Maverick on one, and actually that was a lot of fun. So I guess it matters. I mean, I guess it depends on the film itself, whether it's really appropriate for it or not.
I want to feel like I'm battling through space and hurling galaxies at each other. If it doesn't feel like that, it's not worth it. Yeah. Okay. So that was Trigger. Basically, effectively, they didn't really announce much. Like we're getting these old recap movies from. By the way, also, yeah, they said ahead of time. Big 15th year anniversary for Gurren Lagann. It's 16 years old anyway. So like, yeah, there's a lot of flaws on this premise. But
congrats, kids, you're old.
Getting these old. I don't know what year the movies came out. Late 2000s, early 2010s recap movies in theaters with some gimmicks thrown in. So have fun. That's kind of the only announcement that came from it.
Now, the first movie was 2008, second was 2009.
Okay. So I guess technically 15th anniversary of the movie project. Yeah, it works.
Close enough.
Yep. That's Trigger. Yeah, so again, we can talk about other panels that we went to and stuff. But next piece of news I just want to get through. There was a new Gundam anime announced called Gundam Requiem for Vengeance, and it is produced entirely with Unreal Engine. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds more like a gimmick.
Yep.
Yeah, it is apparently supposed to be about the European and Xeon front, so we're going to see more of the 1 Year War from the Xeon side.
Yeah, it's going back to 0079. You see more from the Xeon side.
I wonder if they're banking on popularity of Witch from Mercury. Really draw the hype to this.
But I mean, why would you go back to UC if that's the goal? That's like Gundam has been like steadily churning out new UC material constantly, at least, especially since Unicorn, which that's 13 years now. So like basically all of the movies and OVAs and ONAs have been just exploring more sides of the Universal Century, and then all the new TV series have been new universes. So they are pretty distinct in pretty much every way, like promotion, style, just originality. For some reason, I guess they think the old fans want these short form kind of revisits to the past, and then they want to capture new fans with new TV series and new stories.
Yeah, I still I keep thinking about how oh god, the one about Char, the series about Char, like was supposed to be
Origin?
I'm sorry,
The Origin.
Yeah, Gundam Origin. Yeah, though it was they. I got the impression they were trying to have enough success with that to basically redo
I
Double
know.
79 for new audience, and instead we're having to do this piece by piece, and and we get like stuff like last year we had Kukuru's Doan's Island, um,
Yep.
and a redo of a bad episode.
Yeah, I know. The most fucking hilarious like monkey's paw you can get. Like you want uh a re-adaptation, a remake of the original series, will only remake the one episode that Tomino took out of the series because it was so bad. It's the only thing we'll remake. It's amazing.
And
Yeah, I mean, my ideal has always been a complete adaptation of the actual origin manga, which does
Mhm.
cover all of the original story, but instead they only adapted the new flashbacks that were put into the
Yeah,
story.
and folks, if you've never read Gundam Origin, it's a hell of a manga.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
the
is by
art
far
level,
the best form of Gundam. That
yeah,
manga.
it's wonderful. Um, but yeah, true wishful thinking on that one. I would have loved to have that more.
I mean,
Um,
it's like the most obvious thing, right? It's like the biggest franchise, and it's all from a series from the 70s and 80s that's like so inaccessible to new fans. So it's the most obvious thing to just remake that story. And at this point, the only thing I can think is like, we're 6 years away. They're just gonna wait for the 50th anniversary and then do a full reboot.
it just hit me. I don't think there's been actual hard media announcements for that for Doan's Island. Come to think of it, I figured that would be announced here at their panels.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, revamping an old show. Look at Space Battleship Yamato 2199. It's like,
Right, exactly.
yeah, they improved it, and it is some of the most kick-ass science fiction you'll ever see. Um, and so yeah, like so I guess take a cue from that, and yeah, if they were to do it, if they were to redo 0079, they'd print money. I think. I really think they would.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very strange strategy. Is give us everything that you can possibly think of in the Universal Century, except the core of the story that new fans don't want to go back to the 70s to experience. Whatever. 50th anniversary. Fingers.
Mhm.
All right. Another thing that I did get into. So this was still day one, I
It
think. I don't
was.
know. It all blends together. Yeah. So this was all within the same. My ass touched that chair as soon as Trigger let out, and it did not leave. Um, so I was in main events from the Netflix panel through the whatever the fuck was after that. Spy Family, was that day? Yeah, I think so.
Spy Family
Um,
panel.
yeah, so they had the Seiyu for Lloyd, Takuya Eguchi was there.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it was fun. You know, it wasn't all that substantial. They didn't have like creative stuff, but it was a fun time. The Netflix panel, I guess I'll touch upon since I mentioned it. Um, the big draw, especially for me, was the Pluto stuff, as I talked about. That is the one thing that I participated in a real press capacity, was a very brief interview with the legend Masao Maruyama, founder of Madhouse, Mappa, and the new studio M2 that is producing Pluto. Um, and he's been in the business for 60 years, worked with Tezuka back right when Mushi Production was like making Astro Boy back at the dawn of TV anime, uh, and has been running these huge studios for the past 50 plus years, bringing in all these great talents that may not have gotten their break without him. Little names like Satoshi Kon, Masaki Yuasa, Mamoru Hosoda, those kinds of guys. And of course, Madhouse is still a powerhouse. Mappa is still a powerhouse. And so I got to talk to him about Pluto specifically and about his, as he calls it, his illness for creating new studios. Every time there's a new project that his current studio can't handle. And yeah, he touched upon. It's a good thing my interview was the day after this panel because credit to Netflix, they asked really good questions because they had Maruyama there and they asked maybe everything I planned to ask him.
Oh man.
So I needed to come up with all new questions after that panel. But I was glad that he got to answer them in that platform that he had the time to because I really only had like 5 minutes with him. So I was glad I got to learn all of that and then still ask, a few other slightly different questions on things that weren't covered there. But, notably, he talked about, well, they revealed the release date. I knew it already, and I've watched the first 2 episodes for preparation for this. So thanks, Netflix. It's awesome. And that's coming out October 26th. So it's a Netflix thing. It's going to drop all 8-hour-long episodes at once. It's going to cover the whole story. So it's about, an episode per volume of the manga. For those who don't know, this is a story arc from Astro Boy, very loosely adapted by and in the style of Naoki Urasawa, the creator of Monster and 20th Century Boys. So you can imagine what that entails. And it is not anything like any Astro Boy you've ever seen. But it is, a very loving tribute in Urasawa's very gritty, hard-boiled, intricate style that he likes to tell his stories. And the anime is a very direct adaptation of his work. And, as I was going to ask Maruyama, and as he acknowledged in the panel, he considers it the culmination of his 60-year career because he started off in the industry working directly with Tezuka while Astro Boy was like contemporary. And he is also the producer of every anime adaptation of Urasawa's manga, from Yawara to Master Keaton to Monster, all at Madhouse. So, he was the guy to do this. And he left, he's still chairman at MAPPA, but he left like running MAPPA day to day to form this new studio, M2, specifically for Pluto to make sure that it had, unlimited time and resources and didn't conflict with MAPPA's extremely busy schedule. And they actually started working on it at MAPPA. They made a pilot film that he talked to me about before founding Studio M2, before realizing that they needed a new studio. And so it's actually been in production for 10 years. So 10 years for 8 hours of television. So you can imagine how much they put into that.
Yeah, that's going to be some good quality right there.
Yeah. So good shit there. Was really happy to see all that and hear about it. And talk to him, obviously.
And yes, can we read your interview, Kestrel? Can we read it somewhere?
Yeah, it is on fandompost.com.
Yay!
So yeah, that was kind of the main highlight for me for the Netflix panel. They put on a pretty good panel, I would say. But yeah, Netflix was good, Spy Family was good, and then the last thing in main events that I went to that night was the world premiere of Fate Strange Fake, which I don't even know how to talk about Fate anymore. I don't even, I sat through an hour of this, and I'm like, I don't know, decently well versed in the Nasuverse, and I have no fucking idea how this is supposed to factor into an established universe. But it's basically like, it's written by Ryogo Narita, who's the creator of Bakano and Durarara. So it's got that going for it. And it is, it's very heavy on the fan service, kind of like Marvel style. Let's bring in all the fan favorites from all these different universes of Fate. And apparently they've even got their own Type Moon multiverse concept that allows these things to happen because everyone needs a multiverse these days, apparently.
Essentially, I'm way too into Fate. So essentially, for a long time, the idea has been each series exists in its own universe where it's canon to that.
Right.
And so beyond the Stay Night Zero continuity and a few others that specifically follow each other, you just need to treat them as separate series that might have a character or two overlap.
Mhm.
In this one, then I had Gilgamesh, and a short appearance from Waver, who everyone loves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
mean, did you watch the whole thing? Because it went on Crunchyroll right after, right?
mhm, yeah, I feel like Naruto's a good fit for Fate.
Yeah,
He, he his other stuff is fun of these large casts with
right, exactly. Ensemble cast.
very over the top personalities, a few psychopaths thrown in.
Yeah.
And that and I think will go well in Fate.
Mhm.
Strange Fake is one of those that hasn't had a whole lot of presence compared to the others.
Mhm.
There's the novels for it are ongoing,
Right.
but like most Fate things, they've never been brought over to the U.S.
Mhm.
Yes. Mm. To my knowledge, they haven't even done anything with that in Grand Order or in the mobile game, which typically collaborates with every Fate.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely went like the other direction. Like, there are characters that I assume only exist in Grand Order that are playing a prominent role in Strange Fake, just from the first little prologue thing that we got. Um, yeah.
Only a couple, well, surprisingly.
Mhm.
Gilgamesh and Enkidu are the only ones who are in Grand Order or in this.
Yeah, but like Enkidu is specifically from Grand Order, though, right? Like they
No,
weren't in anything before, or were they?
this Strange Fake predates Grand Order.
Oh, no shit. Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Enkidu in Grand Order comes from Strange Fake, not the other way
Ah,
around.
okay, nice. Good to know.
Um, let me see when the novels started. And Strange Fake began in 2015,
Ah,
and so it actually would have been around the same time that Grand Order launched.
okay. Okay, yeah. It's like I guess, kind of like if you started Fate with Zero, like I did. If you started with like the UFO table adaptations, because of course, Stay Night is the original story, but
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people were exposed to Zero first, including me. I guess
Same.
it's kind of like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Because yeah, I hadn't played any of FGO, but I did watch the Babylonia TV series, and so I was familiar with the Babylonia Gilgamesh story with Enkidu from that. So I was like, oh, I understand that reference, but nope, it wasn't a reference. It was the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And they also announced a TV series,
Yes,
which
so that is the
I'm
new stuff.
thankful for, since that this was really an extended prologue.
Right. Yeah. So like we were watching it. It was a world premiere of this. They premiered it dubbed for some reason, which is kind of bizarre.
Yeah,
Um,
unusual.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this has anything to do with the business reasons, but it's kind of fitting because it takes place in America. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
there were some business reasons behind the scenes that
but
were not that.
the dub was solid all around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most
It
of the
got
Fate
scouted
dubs
well.
have been.
Yeah. Yeah, once they like, recast at Bang Zoom with Zero, they've been pretty solid. Uh
Mhm.
yeah, so they, showed this and it was good. Um I haven't liked a lot of like Fate spin-off anime. Babylonia I liked more than I expected, especially since I had no fucking idea what happened in the first 6 arcs or whatever. Um, so this one I was like, yeah, whatever. It's a new Fate thing. My ass is already in this chair. I might as well see it through. But it was pretty enjoyable, even if I didn't like get the whole multiverse reference thing at the end, or like there was like one or two characters where it's just like a Marvel movie, really. There are a bunch of Fate Type Moon fans in the audience, so you could tell when it was an established character because everyone fucking lost their mind. And most of them I knew, but a few of them I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Featured a few characters from the case files of Lord
Right.
Elmaloy II,
Yeah.
and in the background, and one who's looking to be one of the core cast.
Yeah, so that was fun. It was a good time. And I was like sitting next to my friend who I guess knew less of this extended Fate lore than I did because everyone was like losing their mind about Enkidu, and he's like, who is the green haired person? I don't what. So yeah, we were like, wow, that was fun. Is there going to be more? Wasn't this the only thing that was announced for it? That seems like we need more. And then yeah, they came back on stage. It was two directors behind it, so they both came back on stage and announced that yes, it will be getting a full TV anime series. So that is good because definitely it needs more.
Yeah. I'm curious how they're going to go about it because putting aside Grand Order, this is, I believe, the first time any Fate spin-off has been adapted that it was ongoing. Or actually, Fate Khalid, it is ongoing.
Yeah, right.
So curious if this will be one core, or if they'll just keep doing more seasons as the novels progress.
I remember back in 2013 to whatever when Collide Liner was the only thing that we had other than the old Dyname and 8-0. Now look at us. Everyone gets a fucking Fate these days.
Grand Order by itself has enough room for them to adapt and make about 5 to 6 more anime series at least.
Really?
And even outside of that, just the success of Fate that Grand Order has spawned means that anything with Fate in the name is going to sell. So let's adapt all those old video games and light novels and manga and weird shit that people came up with.
That's why I figured this would be getting a full series even before they announced it.
Yeah.
Fate is too popular for them to do an entire spin-off as just a TV movie.
Right.
And they didn't give us a release date. So I'm guessing it's still somewhat early in production.
Yeah.
Yes. Early next year at the absolute earliest.
Definitely, yeah. But yeah, the first little taste of it was, good quality, well directed. So they can keep that up for the series. It should be a good time.
Oh man.
Yeah. Another fucking wild announcement we got. There's another panel I was not at. I didn't really make it to most of the studio panels this time around. I guess I was too focused on series specific panels and stuff like that. Autographs, events, concerts. But Wit Studio had a panel with Warner Brothers Japan.
Yes, I did go to that panel. Oh, that was nuts.
Suicide Squad Isekai.
Yes.
Which is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be...
sounds like a Mad Lib.
Yeah,
it does sound like Mad Lib.
Yeah, they said flat out, cause I went to that one on, it was on Sunday morning, or at least it felt like a Sunday morning. And we had people, Hiroyuki Omori from Warner Bros. Japan, and George Wada from Wit Studios to start. And they did the Japan, the Warner's sizzle reel, the Wit Studios sizzle reel, and basically, he's like, we really want to do DC stuff. We're all really big DC fans. And he's like, how did Wada get involved in this? And all Wada does is stands up, opens his shirt, and he's got a Batman shirt underneath. They're all DC fans.
Wait, did you just reveal Batman's identity?
Possibly. I'm sorry, but hey, there are Batman manga. I'm just saying, man. Yeah, but they basically said they made an original story, focusing on Harley Quinn as your lead character, and they basically just said, we want to do an isekai where the Suicide Squad is dropped into various isekai worlds and goes nuts. That's the premise. And they showed the character designs sheets for Harley and Joker. It's them to start, but there will be more characters added. And in the trailer, you can find the trailer online, and you see an angry Amanda Waller. And again, there's not an angry Amanda Waller. It's just her, apparently directing some of the action of this. And they also had, let's see. As far as Japanese crew, yeah, I mentioned Wada and Omori from. They were the initial people they showed. And then producer Sho Otani, assistant producer Kesuke Ariga. They also joined the channel to talk about different things. They've had screenwriters Tapper Nagatsuki and Eiji Umehara. They were expert screenwriters at Isekai, so they hired them specifically for this project. And yeah, we love Isekai. We get to go nuts and have fun with this. They got this beautiful, there's this beautiful picture of Harley Quinn that you will get to find. Is from a man named Akira Amano, the character designer of Psycho Pass. And Wada basically said, when he thinks of Psycho, he thinks of Harley. It was just an interesting match. And so, and he said, yeah, Joker was a very difficult character to tackle because there have been so many iterations of him so they wanted to make sure they made their own version of the Joker for this, and not have anything, be a takeoff of anybody else, as it were. Oh, the director. Wait a minute here. Okay, here we go. Eri Osada of Jujutsu Kaisen, and she came out wearing a mask. I can't remember. I can't remember the Japanese character of the Batman and the Outsiders. I think she's with the Suicide Squad, but I think she was trying to emulate that character when she came out. But yes, they're very, very happy, and Wada said, if this is successful, expect more DC anime to be coming out from this. He said this directly. Said also the animation quality, the monsters are going to be 3D CG, while the characters are going to be drawn 2D. Yeah, that's mostly of what I have from that panel. But yeah, the moment that was announced, oh god, that crowd went crazy. Just completely insane. And it was a lot of fun to watch that.
So yeah, notably the director is an interesting choice because she hasn't directed any project before. She's only done episode direction for a few series. But yeah, the writers. So Tapping Nagatsuki is specifically the original creator of ReZero, which is of course very beloved isekai series. And Eiji Umehara was one of the writers of the anime adaptation, and then the two of them also were the two creators and writers of another WIT Studio original, Vivi, which was not isekai at all. But yeah, they have worked together in this capacity on that series. And yeah, of course, Akira Amano, the character design for Psycho Pass, and I guess everyone's forgot that he wrote a several hundred chapter manga series that got a several hundred episode anime adaptation called Reborn. Everyone just loves Psycho Pass now. But yeah, that's character designs, and the music is Kenichiro Suehiro, who also did the music for ReZero. So yeah, a lot of ReZero staff, VV staff coming onto this.
Quite a bit of potential with that kind of staff.
Yeah, totally.
Worst case, a concept like this,
right?
No, it will not.
Yeah, it sounds so bizarre, but like WIT Studio, like they have such a high standard of quality, and most of they've been focused on a lot of original stuff in the past few years, and most of it hits pretty well. Like they're pretty good.
Yeah. Wit also did a panel earlier in the weekend, also with Production IG. That was pretty fun. That was pretty fun too.
Mm.
I'll get into that a little bit more later. I want to let Skyler talk about a panel that he went to that I know that he was really excited about. I saw it with him, but I'll let him take lead on the one about A1 real quick.
Well, last thing about the Suicide Squad Isekai,
Oh.
I just love that earlier in this year, James Gunn had this whole like DC
Hold on a
reboot
second.
spiel.
Oh yeah.
And he's specifically like, DC has just been handing out these IPs to anyone who'll take them and doing all these weird things that don't belong. We're going to keep everything in-house and consistent and single canon. And then with studios like, yo, we're going to make a Suicide Squad isekai.
Okay, dude, I forgot to mention this part. He literally was talking to James Gunn. What was it the part here? Okay, Omori said there were discussions on various characters on which characters they're going to plan to be used. Oh, and DC characters will use magic in this one. That's what they said. And Wada mentions James Gunn and how he can't talk to him. He tells the audience to call James Gunn and surprise him with how much they want to support this project. He says that. I was like, okay.
Hilarious. But yeah, DC is still going to be fucking spread all over the place with wild shit all over. So look forward to that. Yeah, so I think A1 was probably earlier than the last thing I have to talk about, so you can touch on that.
Yeah. So part of it was fairly typical industry panel for Aniplex, just trailers for various shows they've licensed, mostly stuff that's already aired. But the more interesting part was having some of the staff from 86. I don't remember their names off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Yuichiro Kikuchi, Tetsuya Kawakami, and I could not catch the name of the third person. They didn't show a graphic for him. They refer to him as Ishio-san. You know that.
Yeah, I believe there was a director and chief animation director. And what they did was actually talk about the animation process. That's including through some slides. It's showing the steps of storyboards, layouts, key animation, in-betweens, and how anime is actually made, in which you don't always hear a lot about at these conventions. A lot of it is promotion and for upcoming shows or discussion and of shows that have just aired. And so it's interesting to hear this directly from people who work on anime.
I loved watching that. I really loved watching that with it. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
I did too. It was just fascinating to hear their perspective. I'd heard bits of this before through places like Sakuga Blog, but then it's different hearing it directly from the people who work on it. And there's a good question asked about how many frames go into an anime episode. And they said for in-betweens there were, I don't remember the exact number, but several thousand. And for a 24-minute episode.
Yeah.
Just mind-blowing to me the amount of work it takes to produce one episode.
It humbles you. You're like, dang, sometimes these guys look a bit haggard when you see them at cons. Like they've been like working all night, and then you look at you see a panel like this, you're like, okay, yeah, the homeboys need to rest. You really do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I always, all these panels that have just like producers and voice actors, I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah, anytime they have like directors and animators, I'm all about that. and they have like live drawings and going into the process, all that kind of stuff is way more interesting.
Agreed.
Yeah, so the last like real piece of news that I had was from the Crunchyroll panel, which is one of the only industry panels I really attended.
That's where I finally found you.
But that's right, yeah. Yeah, so it was like these industry panels, even at AX, even if they try to make them big, are mostly not that exciting. And we've reached like an interesting paradigm at this point, especially for like a Crunchyroll panel, because it's like at this point the default is everything is going to get licensed by Crunchyroll. So them announcing new licenses doesn't mean anything because that's just what we assumed would happen to every new show anyway, and it's an exception.
Or if it goes to High Dive instead, it's sometimes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is the one Sentai show this season. Okay, cool. But everything else, we're like, yeah, of course Crunchyroll licensed it. They license everything. That's just what happens. And these are all, shows that are in the future, because everything needs to be licensed way ahead of time now. So a lot of it doesn't mean that much anyway. So the one thing that they need to do to like, actually make their panels interesting, one, have guests, two, have like premieres of new trailers. So they did that with like Solo Leveling. They premiered a new trailer for that. I'm looking forward to that. They had like the director of Link Click and Heaven Official's Blessing, all the Chinese co-productions that are really good these days. He showed up for a few minutes there. And then their big announcement at the end was the third thing that you do to keep these things, interesting, which is, you're on production committees at this point, and you actually make the world announcement of brand new anime productions. And so in this case, it was the other side of the Spice and Wolf situation, which is a series from a similar era getting a new season rather than a reboot. Black Butler.
Yeah.
And it is, obviously going to be on Crunchyroll since they announced it. It's coming sometime next year. It's going to be Cloverworks taking over, which, they were split off from A1 since the last Black Butler, and it was probably the A1 staff that became Cloverworks anyway that worked on the previous seasons and movies. Unlike Spice and Wolf, we've been getting more Black Butler a little more recently, so it makes a little bit more sense that they're just continuing it instead of rebooting it. But it has been, a minute since we've had any Black Butler anime, so yeah, it was pretty big news.
Crowd definitely went nuts on that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen the series, but I know even in today it still has a decent sized fandom. I mean, a lot of people seem to think back fondly on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely like one of the big fangirl Bishonen kind of shows. And yeah, I mean, it's a solid series. It's one of those weird situations where the first season has an anime original ending, and then the second season is completely anime original content, and then the third season does the thing where it's like, hey, ignore the second season and like everything after episode 15 of the first season. Just pretend that didn't happen. Just pick up after episode 15. It'll be cool. So yeah, a difficult one to like watch without having a strategy guide, but it's a pretty decent series when it follows the manga.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of my main news points. If there are any other like main highlights of the convention or overall thoughts that you guys want to dig into, we can start on that. Like I said, I have lots of thoughts on things like the autographs and other things that I attended or didn't.
Have you recovered?
So yeah, I'll let you guys go first. Sure, I don't know. Emotionally, I don't know. Physically, I'm okay.
Yeah, physical recovery takes a few days.
Yeah,
Emotional takes a few years.
yeah.
For me, one of the interesting events was the Asagiri Kafka the panel. Well, it's the creator of Bungo Stray Dogs.
I didn't get to that. How was it?
He came. It was interesting. He came on stage wearing a mask, never showed his face. He had some good comments, in particular when he was asked about the literary influences. He talked a bit about how he's actually had people come up to him and then say they got interested in classical literature because of Bungo
That's
Stray
interesting.
Dogs. And read. Mm-hmm. He said that's one of the things he was hoping for. It's certainly an interesting combination in literature, Japanese and Western, in the guise of essentially a shonen action series.
Right.
It was interesting to hear from him. I got the impression, and he was a thoughtful guy. And of course, they had the premiere of the. This would be the 5th season now. Now, which is off to a good start, and essentially continuing the arc from the last season. One thing that surprised me was, for the premiere, the room completely filled up. And there was a lot of cheering. I didn't know Bungo Stray Dogs was that popular.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably another one that has like a lot of fans of Pretty Boys, but you know, we're on 5 seasons and a movie, and I think some live action adaptations at this point, and like
Stage
manga
plays
spin-offs and stuff,
and like
stage
3
plays. Yeah,
novels,
yeah,
spin-off
yeah,
manga.
yeah. So yeah,
This is turning into fate.
well, this is just every successful
It will be
franchise.
fate in the end.
Yeah, but it's clearly got a good sized audience, and the rate they're going, I guess they're going to keep adapting as long as it keeps getting attention, which I'm very down for. It's been it surprised me how good it was after the first season, which wasn't bad, but it didn't wow me the way that the last several seasons have.
Yeah,
I'm just overall strong cast, fun, and shonen action mystery series, and all the literary nods and the character names, their abilities, and that sort of thing are fun, even if I admit I get virtually none of them.
yeah, yeah. It was funny because like you know I knew that was the references that they were making from the beginning, but it was all Japanese at the beginning. So I was like, la, 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 I don't know what this means. And then we got into like the second season with all the Western authors, and just all of my like high school English assignments started coming back to me, and I was like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. I get them. All right.
Yeah, fighting and F. Scott Fitzgerald and his
Yeah.
Great Gatsby.
Yeah. Very simple.
Yeah, it was a good time. Interesting that they did the author panel and the premiere screening as separate events.
Mm.
And the Q&A with Kafka, it was actually the first event I went to morning on day one. And that one, along with several others, was actually in the hotel next to the convention center. It has a decent sized ballroom, I'd say 1,000 to 2,000 people. But for some of the other events, that wasn't enough.
Yeah. Yeah. For someone with a press badge and the moral ambiguity to abuse it, I really didn't get into that much. Like, I didn't get into Trigger. I didn't get into the Bleach panel. I didn't get into the Rascal screening, which I was in line for like an hour and a half. So I actually didn't go to anything in the JW Marriott in any of its rooms. The most time I spent in there was waiting in line for that and not getting in.
Yeah, I did get into the Bleach panel.
Yeah.
Well, only because I was parked in there from the previous panel.
Right. That was one where like, yeah, I wanted to go to it, but I was doing something beforehand, an autograph, I think. And so, I showed up there. I was like, press. Nope, absolutely no press benefit at this panel.
They were not impressed.
The Bleach panel was fun. Although even I'm not into it. I'm not into Bleach at all.
Yeah.
I'm just learning and watching watching the fans react to it and learning stuff. Yeah, they actually had uh the lead actor. Uh, Thank you.
Yeah,
And they
Masakazu
chant
Morita.
Mori. Remember that part now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he
Yes,
really knows how to
yes, he does.
play to a crowd and
He's
get people
very
hyped up.
interactive with the crowd, more so than a lot of the Japanese guests I normally
Mhm.
see.
Yeah, it's funny. He was there and I went to his panel the first year I went to AX in 2014.
Mm.
And he was very much the same. This energetic. You could tell he was having fun. And like when they
Oh,
had that contest this year for who could
yes,
yell
they had the
Bankai the
Bankai
best.
contest. Oh, and Biz Media, we should be nice. Biz Media hosted this, obviously. Couple guys named let's see, God's Will and Urian were the host on that one. And yeah, they like had different. All these different people had different interpretations of yelling this line, and I was like, "Hey, that might be pretty good." Some might whisper, some might carry a bit of dialogue. Others just go nuts. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was. I mean, I like I said, I don't know very much about Bleach. I'm guessing you do know more about it than I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I grew up
And
watching it on Toonami.
Yeah. Well, just Adult Swim at the time.
oh yeah, I
would have
love.
been
I
Adult
did say
Swim.
I have to say I loved how they kept he kept bringing that up. He's like, I keep meeting all these people who grew up what's the original Bleach, and now I'm meeting them, and they're stronger and older adults and everything. And it was oh god, like dude, you've been doing this for a long time, like, and you're still connecting with them.
Yeah, even though he
Yeah.
looks like
50,
he's
I turned
25, he's like in
51.
his 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, the anime premiered in like
Yep.
2004, 2005, something like that.
Yeah.
It's still wild to me that we're getting more Bleach now,
And it's so good. Oh, Bleach is good. It was never good.
right? You know, I think like it was a formative show for me,
Yeah.
but also parts of the adaptation really don't hold up.
Yeah, what I always say about the Thousand Year Blood War anime is Bleach is as cool to me at 30 now as I
Okay.
thought it was when I was 15. It's finally come around to what my little 15-year-old mind imagined that it could be.
Mm-hmm. Lavish production and much better pacing. Like 4 or 5 chapters there's each episode. I'm enjoying this arc in the anime more than I did in the manga.
Oh
Really?
yeah, it was garbage in the manga.
Mm-hmm. Although I do get a kick every time about them trying to figure out the pronunciation for the villain.
Yuhawaka.
Yeah, in the Japanese
Okay.
pronunciation is Yuhabaha.
Yeah.
It's officially written YHWACH, and it's supposed to be
Oh,
based on
wow.
the Hebrew name of
Okay.
God,
Right.
and in a Germanic form.
That's
Yeah.
So
The translate.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so of course now we have the English version of the Japanese version of the German version of the Arabic name of God.
Mm-hmm. The translator I noticed gave it a slightly different pronunciation from the dub voice actors
Mm.
because it's essentially impossible to figure out from how it's written or
so
said in
basically we have the
Japanese.
meat salad
Yeah.
version. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. But either way, it's nice having Bleach back and getting such a
Yeah, there's
lavish
one thing that's
adaptation.
interesting to me.
It's amazing.
They basically said that the first one was more or less from the manga, and that this new version is apparently supposed to be having a bunch of scenes that are not in the manga at all.
Yeah,
The,
so
the first core is the same. They added several scenes.
right. Because this arc in the manga, like, it was very clear when Kubo was trying to draw shit out, or his editors wanted him to draw shit out, rather, and it was very clear when they were rushing him through something. So this is like the ideal version of the story that he wanted to tell, where he is working directly with the anime staff to, expand all the parts that were rushed and condense all the parts that were drawn out and actually make the perfect product.
I mean, Morita mentioned at the panel, Kubo even attended the recording.
Nice. Wow.
And gave some instruction
yes, he did.
For how they should sound in the scenes that weren't in the manga, because
Awesome.
they didn't have anything to work off for those.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was happy about being able to ask him about the original works and how to really play it out. Yeah, got that here. Wow. Jeez.
So it's impossible for me to not segue from this into the autograph situation.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
So autographs at Anime Expo. Again, you have your 115,000 attendees or so. Got a handful of guests. They got about 50 to 75 guaranteed autograph tickets per guest, and about 50 additional standby. So the guaranteed ones aren't necessarily guaranteed. So what that has meant for AX, since it does not do any sort of like lottery or pre-ticketing system for autograph tickets, or lining up ahead of the actual signing, you have to get all of your tickets at 8 a.m. On the day of the signing. So what that has meant in previous years is, you start lining up at, I went in 2016, 3 or 4 a.m. was pretty safe. You could get what you needed at 3 or 4 a.m. You slept on the streets of downtown LA for a few hours, got your ticket, passed out in your hotel for a few hours. It was all good. Last year, you probably need to be there by like midnight, maybe a little earlier if you wanted your good guests at 8 a.m. This year, for some reason, there is this absurd economy around Funko Pops signed by voice actors. And there was a literal cartel at Anime Expo to get these Funko Pops signed by the Japanese voice of Ichigo Masakazu Morita and flip them immediately on eBay and other third-party selling platforms like that. And these guys were so dedicated, so sure that they would make so much money from this endeavor that they were camped out at 9 p.m., 6 p.m., 6 p.m., 6 p.m. And you might say,
the
well,
night before.
That sounds like the logical next step. But this was 6 p.m. on Friday for signing on Sunday. So they were camped out for Friday night, the entirety of Saturday, and the first 8 hours of Sunday to get an autograph ticket. So this is, of course, absolutely absurd. And there were like 30 people there already on Friday night. And it had probably doubled by 6 to 9 p.m. on Saturday night. Which is still, the very earliest you would imagine anyone lining up for the next day. So, by the time that anyone would reasonably think of lining up for a person, not even reasonably by AX standards, you already had at least 60 of your 75 autographs accounted for. And, these weren't literally people sitting in the same spot for that entire time. They had this whole encampment set up with like chairs and stuff, and they would go in shifts. They had this whole system worked out, so there were always people there holding the spots, and for some reason they got away with it. And that was, basically the entire Morita autograph session for the first day, and then they got their tickets on Sunday morning, and they immediately went back into their encampment. Uh, Somehow they had people save their spots for the actual period of time where they were getting the Funko Pop signed, because that was during the day and Saturday, so they needed to be there physically, and then they were right back to it for Sunday to get another 60 signed, and so yeah, it was like impossible for any actual fan who actually wanted to own something signed by this guy to get an autograph. And
How many resembled comic book guy from The Simpsons?
So
An impressive level of not having a life.
yeah, so these guys took all the autograph tickets from the fans. I got one through knowing a guy who knew a guy. So I did get an autograph. But what that meant was I got to be in the autograph line while all these guys were going up, and also they were all like taking their sweet ass time and like talking to him and arguing about the rules and like hugging him, which you weren't allowed to do, and taking pictures, which you weren't allowed to do, and specifically using this not because they were fans, but as like certificates of authenticity that Morita actually signed them, so that they posted these pictures that were not allowed to be taken of them hugging this voice actor who was not allowed to be touched on their eBay listing to be like, see, it was really him. This is me hugging him. So just the fucking worst humans. And they would all go up there, and one of the things that they were arguing about was like everything was supposed to be personalized so that you wouldn't flip it, so that you would actually keep it and would actually go to fans. So they were arguing about that because, of course, you needed to sell it, so it couldn't have someone's name on it. So they had these little like sticky notes that they were passing around where you had to write your name, and every single fucking person in that line, one, they had a Funko Pop, which we all knew they would. They were all organized. They had like these boxes where every time someone would get the Funko Pop signed, they would put it into the same box. So they were completely blatant about the fact they were all in this together, working for this same system to sell them. And they, when they got the little sticky notes that were like, write your name so it's personalized, every single person wrote Ankai or Zangetsu or Getsuga Tensho or some combination of those three. So I think I was the first person, maybe one of 5 people who got their actual name and got anything other than a Funko Pop signed. And since they were taking so long arguing about the rules and talking to this guy and everything else, they pretty early on told the entire standby line that none of you guys are getting in. And basically, the standby was the real fans who actually like waited for this ticket to get something for themselves, which is what you're supposed to be there for. So they all got booted out. Fortunately, a few of my friends, again, you just have to follow rumors or like be the squeaky wheel, color outside the lines, because a few of them like went up to staff and complained about how it was being handled, and some of the staff just like scribbled on their standby ticket and were like, come back tomorrow and we'll sign. So fortunately, a few of my friends did get their stuff signed. Eventually, everyone that I know that wanted it and like got a standby ticket got at least something signed by Morita. So like, one of my friends wasn't going to go through all that again. So Morita signed a poster as well as whatever item he brought him. So I just gave my poster to one of my friends. So everyone that I knew ended up happy, but I would say a good 99 point some number of 9% of Bleach fans at that convention did not walk away with what they anticipated or wanted.
That's effed up. That's effed up. I hate.
And you can find all those listings online of all of those Bankai, Getsuga Tensho, Zangetsu, Funko Pop, and Morita at Anime Expo.
I bet these are the same guys that charged $300 for a Space Runaway Idiom or something like that. Oh,
I
I hate them.
I don't
Oh.
understand the Funko Pop economy. I wish it would die. I wish all Funko Pops would cease to exist. I wish cons would implement rules against them. Um,
Yeah, they
because
need to just have staff on the lookout for that sort of thing.
yeah,
Definitely.
like it was so blatant, but I guess they somehow managed to work around the system such that they weren't technically breaking any rules, and so they couldn't like dismiss them. But I would be shocked if this. I mean, it's AX; they never change. But it seems like this is the kind of thing that certainly you have to change. Um,
Agreed.
and maybe that means that they take a cue from Anime NYC and all the autographs are lottery. And again, that fucking sucks for people who are willing to put in the time to wait for it, because then you just get randos who are like, sure, I'll sign up for everything, and then like, still take away the chance from people who really care about these people. So, not a good system either. But this is not sustainable. Like, you can't expect people to wait outside 2 days prior to have a chance of getting an autograph. It's just absurd.
Oh my god.
That's the AX autograph situation at present. We have gone far past any reasonable expectation and are just in absolute parody territory. So
Did,
surely something has to change, or else people will be lining up for AX autographs like today.
oh my god. It reminds me of oh god. I don't want to tell you the whole story, but it was just a crazy situation with the creator of Haruhi Suzumiya at AX. It's a long story there. But yeah, I'm sorry about that, man. Did you get anything signed just from any other
Yeah, I
creator
mean,
just for
like I
yourself?
said, I actually got morning design. I didn't deserve it, and I felt really guilty until all my friends eventually did get their things. But yes, I did get my Bleach Blu-ray signed. And like I
Cool.
said, he did a poster as well, which I gave to my friend. So that worked out relatively well. Um, I also fucking English voice actor autographs, like, so not worth even considering anymore. Even
Mm.
the free tickets for those, when you actually went up to them, they were like, "Oh yeah, no, actually, you still have to pay for us to sign anything except your badge." So
Oh wow.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of disgusting. Um, but the Ancient Magus Bride staff they had there, I got just a Shikishi signed by them. I didn't have any of the Blu-rays or anything for that, but they were really cool. Um, they interestingly, two of the major guests on day one at this convention were Kafka Asagiri and Studio Kafka.
It was very
Not
Kafkaesque.
very Kafka. Uh, yeah, so I got them, Studio Kafka, not Asagiri. Got them to sign a Shikishi. Second day was Morita and Takayuki Hirao, who directed the best of the Garden of Sinners anime films, as well as Pompo the Cinephile, which is a really fun movie if you like the film industry. Um, and I was at the Jujutsu Kaisen panel during the signing with Sayaka Senbongi and Kentaro Kumagai, which was they they should advertise these things better, because like apparently at the Metallic Rouge signing, you could get anything signed by these people. But at this signing for these specific guests, you could only get the Delicious Dungeon poster they were giving away. So very
Mm.
misleading. Because if I knew that, I mean, I'm glad I didn't go to their signing. But turns out my friend got a poster signed for me anyway, so that's cool. But if I
Yay.
knew that, I would have gone to the fucking Metallic Rouge signing, because it had the character designer of Cowboy Bebop, and I just assumed he was only signing the Metallic Rouge poster or whatever they had. But if I knew he would sign Cowboy Bebop, I sure as fuck would have prioritized that. But
Um.
anyway, so I got that poster unexpectedly. And then day three, I got my Promised Neverland Blu-ray signed by Koshu Nie, who did the endings to that and performed at the concert the night before, which was awesome. didn't particularly care about anything else about that concert. Way too fucking long. I really wish I could have gone for just Koshu Nie because they were definitely worth it, and it was their first appearance outside of the U.S. period, which is awesome. But I wasted a lot of time, almost falling asleep to all of the other artists while I could have been going to an array of very exciting things that were overlapping with it. So yeah, a bummer about that. A bit of sunk cost fallacy in that I had bought tickets, so I felt like I needed to attend that over everything else. But also, weirdly, they put this like random artist from I think Atlanta as like the headliner after
What?
these like prominent Japanese artists who work in actual anime. Uh, so I couldn't have even known when the artist that I cared about went on. Otherwise, I would have maybe tried to plan it better. But yeah, it was worth it just for them.
Yeah.
So
I left before they had the last performance because I saw it was someone
yeah,
I hadn't heard of.
yeah, everyone did.
Yeah, I was mainly there for Millie and Koshu Nie.
Mhm.
Because, not gonna lie, I listened to the opening from Executioner and Her Way of Life all the time.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that show, so I'd only heard them in Goblin Slayer, and I had forgotten that opening. But once they started playing it, I was like, oh yeah, this is a really interesting opening. So that was kind of cool. The sound was really bad though, especially for the vocals, especially for Millie. It was rough. Uh, it
Yeah.
was yeah,
And their lead singer dislocated her knee.
yep, that was
Oh Jesus, really?
yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was part of the performance.
yeah, me too at
Like
first.
she kept singing
Yeah.
and
Oh
didn't
my
even miss a beat.
goodness.
Yeah, she was like down on the ground and finishing the song. We're like, okay, I guess that's part of the show. But then she's like, sorry guys, I can't get up. I dislocated my knee. And then
Oh.
like it was I mean, obviously we were very worried about her. But it also just got very awkward because she was like, oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. This happens all the time. I'll get it back. We'll continue the show. And then they were like, no, you won't.
Yeah, probably because the staff for the theater didn't want to get sued.
Yeah, exactly. So she was like, "No, it's back. It's fine. I'm standing up. We'll do some more songs." And then they were like closing the curtain as she was like, "Please, can I play more?" It
Yeah,
was
My
very,
goodness.
yeah, it was very sad and awkward and bizarre all around.
I respect the dedication though.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think
and
it was near the end of their set anyway. Like
yeah,
it was going to be their second to last song or something.
right. They had already kind of like filled up their hour. So, but yeah, they didn't want any liability from that.
Yeah, I mean,
It-
thankfully she was okay.
yeah, it was cool hearing like her anecdote about the fact that she's not Japanese. She lives in Japan now, but she is like Chinese Canadian. And when she was living in Canada growing up, she was going to AX as a regular attendee, and she was like making Vocaloid songs with her friends. And then she eventually moved out to Japan and became the front woman of this band that is now doing anime theme songs and is finding all the success. And now she's back at Anime Expo as a prominent performing artist at their big concerts. So that was really cool to hear.
Yeah,
Oh man.
the other thing that surprised me was the first two artists.
Mhm.
Those both spoke fluent English. I thought
Yeah.
there would be a translator.
Yeah, it was very impressive. I see that a lot with like musical artists. I guess just touring around the world, maybe you pick it up more, but it seems like, yeah, frontmen, front people of bands and solo artists are always like really good at English.
Yeah, I mean the lead singer of Koshu Nie was the only one who didn't speak fluent English.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh. That's some crazy shit.
And uh, also closing ceremonies usually kind of worth skipping. But this time they had a little mini concert from Koshu Nie.
Oh really?
Yeah, so that was nice. They played the Jujutsu Kaisen song again because everyone loves Jujutsu Kaisen. You can't have them on a stage at an anime con without them playing that song.
Obviously.
Yeah, that got a lot of Cheers, and yeah, they're great. They're like I love their music so much, and it's just as hard live. So I was really happy to see them.
Oh man. Um. Actually, if I may, I'd like to talk about one panel more or less because it really was amazing to watch. Just real quick.
Mhm.
I did go to the Studio Bones panel, the
Mm.
25th anniversary.
Oh, same.
Oh,
Go
you were
ahead.
there too? Yeah.
No, yeah,
Ah, yeah.
I was parked in that room all day.
I
I
can't
think
blame
you
you, bro.
chose the right room to park in, from everything I'm hearing.
Yeah, it was great, man. Like I mean, I wound up hobbling about. I had a boot on, so it was a bit of an adventure. But I really was happy to go to this. It's like Bones has been making so many good projects and everything, but I didn't know just how much stuff had really been going into some of the stuff, some of the titles for from both Masahiko Minami and Toshihiro Kawamoto, even their careers before forming Bones and things like that. And so people, naturally people um, were cheering whenever stuff from Full Metal and Cowboy Bebop got shown and discussed and everything. But it was interesting. He talked about like how Orwan Host High School Club got this giant reaction. He's like, "Really? Y'all like that?" Like, dang man,
Yeah.
okay. Um,
I was surprised that there are even some cheers for Wolf's Rain.
yeah, that thing's had a big following. I think it was it Kawamoto yeah, it was Kawamoto
Yeah.
specifically said, like, he was really happy that people remembered that show. That was really like one of his most personal shows after doing Bebop, yeah. And he's like happy as hell. Um, and also, and I honestly, when they started talking, they talked about the Metallic Rouge, and I honestly had not heard about it. I just,
Me neither.
yeah, I had not heard nothing about it. And then he talked about one person in particular who I was like, okay, yeah, you got somebody really good for this. It's gonna be the supervising editor, I think, is Yutaka Izubuchi. Uh, Man has been creating excellent mech stuff from primarily. I've known him for creating the mech of Mobile Police Pat Labor, like that guy. But he also,
Oh,
yeah, he also had done Gundam 0080. I was like, oh damn, he had some really good mech treatment here. He and Kawamoto have had this really good relationship for a very long time, and that's more or less how it got. Apparently, Izubuchi is actually this new show is originally his idea, and it's like, okay, basically story where artificial humans exist with natural humans and that type of thing. So I guess a Blade Runner type situation to an extent, except Blade Runner they kill artificial humans. Okay, my bad.
uh, yeah. I didn't know they had a new project. It was interesting though. Well,
Yeah.
I'll probably check it out when it airs. I had actually been in that room before for in the art and methods of storytelling panel.
Mm.
That one was mostly in them promoting the new show those people were working on, and the title of which I do not recall.
Tommy Yadabi.
Yeah, the God app.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was mostly there for Yoko Taro.
Right.
Oh, the show they talked about did not look all that interesting to me. Yoko Taro is always entertaining. He said he had lost his usual Emil mask while out drinking. And he wore a mask of a giant leprechaun head. Which is very Yoko Taro.
Yeah, and I guess that was another situation where the autographs were kind of like misleading because it said that he was going to be the only one not signing with that group, but he had like some pre-signed thing that they got, so people did still get Yoko Taro autographs.
Well, that's good. That's good. He was one of the biggest names there.
Yeah, it's definitely like both of those shows. They're definitely trying to draw people by the name recognition, especially that one, because they had Yoko Taro, they had the creator of Soul Eater and Fire Force, they had Gene, who's like this popular like musical and visual artist in Japan who's had some Vocaloid and anime stuff. Yeah, and then the director I think had some decent credits to his name as well. So yeah, they were trying to push that hard, but yeah, like you said, it looks like a disgusting CG abomination. So even all of those people aren't going to save that, I don't think.
Oh, I do want to say one thing, other thing about the Bones panel.
Oh, go ahead.
Because there was something they brought in. I loved looking at this thing. They brought all the way from Japan this maquette of one of the characters, and Kawamoto explained that like it's created by this highly regarded model builder named Takia-san, and Izubuchi works with him on designing tokusatsu stuff, and they basically brought this model in to help all the animators to communicate to the animators. We really want curves to be really prominent for this character that we have. This everything, and he said like we draw everything by hand in 2D, and there's going to be some 3D and 3D mixed in it. But we do everything by 2D. We draw it, and we're very lucky to have really good artists doing that. So he specifically brought this maquette to communicate to his staff that we really want to emphasize this when we bring the show to the public. And oh man, he also talked about one other bit of history when they were going to show Knocking on Heaven's Door somewhere in California, and they were starting up they were starting up Full Metal Alchemist. It was starting to kick up steam, but he got this word that Cowboy Bebop is insanely popular in the U.S. Like, really? Like, yeah, it. And so when they did this special screening of Knocking on Heaven's Door, it was supposed to be a theater for 2,000 people, except about 4 or 5,000 people showed up. So we had to do an extra screening just for that. And it was kind of like, oh man, you're learning about this history, all these people that he worked with, Yoko Kanno, stuff like that, and apparently they kind of made a bit of announcements. Let's see, there's going to be a celebration of 10 years of Space Dandy. Interesting. And they're going to also producing a Crunchyroll 25-year documentary. And let's see, and a Cowboy Bebop 2 vinyl album compilation coming out with some other events that they have not detailed yet. So yeah, but yeah, I just it really. There's very few times you actually feel like you're sitting there with anime royalty, like you just did with Maruyama.
Maruyama.
Maruyama. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah. That's what it just really did feel like that. Watching this panel right up close, man. So yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I talked about most of the stuff I went to, most of the stuff I didn't go to, most of the stuff I tried to go to. Obviously, there's a Horimiya panel on the last day. It was kind of the only thing on the last day. Yeah, it was fun. They had the director there, and one of the lead voice actors, so that was cool. They did like they do a few live readings in the panels I was going to. This one they had like the whole scene just with the one character's voice removed, so you got to like experience the full scene and get the translation and everything. So that was kind of a cool way of doing that.
Hey.
Yeah, so that was good. Yeah, obviously, I make my schedule for these cons, and this one is, of course, the most extreme. There's just so much going on at all times that I want to go to. I want to go to all the things that you guys talked about. I want to go to so many that none of us talked about and that none of us went to. And it's impossible not only because they're all going on at the same time, but because you need to be camped in a specific spot or in line for hours. So you just need to like forego everything except the absolute top priorities. So that is the AX reality. So that's basically what I managed to get to. So yeah, do you have anything else you wanted to cover about the convention, Skyler?
No, those were all the highlights for me.
Highlights, lowlights.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Questionable lights.
if you go in with like fairly low expectations and a pretty small pool of things that you're interested in, then yeah, I guess you can come out pretty happy. But of course, I'm setting myself up for disappointment no matter what. But there was definitely good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if there wasn't, I wouldn't keep going every year.
Yeah, yeah, it's
I always enjoy myself and come away with a million things to complain about at the same time.
of course, yeah, it's suffering we have to put ourselves through because the alternative is massive FOMO because there's just so much going on that you need to at least try to experience as much as you can of it, just knowing that you will be missing out on lots of things still, and you'll be disappointed by lots of things, and lots of things will not go as they should. But definitely, you can't. It's too
Agreed.
important. Okay, well, Darius keeps dropping out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can wrap things up. Do you have any recommendation?
Well, for currently airing, in Zom 100,
Yeah. Did you see any of the stuff about that at the convention?
I didn't.
Yeah, me neither.
But yeah, that was the hardest I laughed up at any premiere this season.
Yeah.
And then, if you like Shonen and Bleach, current season of Bleach is basically as entertaining as it gets. And what about you?
Uh, yeah, I don't know that I have any recommendations. I mean, we'll talk about the new season next episode. But in terms of like physical releases, I don't think there's been anything all that important since our last episode. So yeah, I think I'm good on recommendations. I will say for Zom 100, yeah, I after I watched that first episode, I kind of wish that I had gone to some of that stuff at AX, especially like they had the artist of the manga there for autographs and stuff. So a lot of my friends got that even though they weren't into the series yet, and I guess I kind of wish that I did as well because yeah, it turned out to be a really good first episode of the anime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Looking forward to looking forward to how it goes from here.
yeah. Um, yeah, I can't think of any other like new releases or anything. So, Darius, can we hear you? Are you here? Do you have anything? Probably not. Okay.
He's here in spirit.
Yeah. Darius recommends all the old stuff, Discotheque really. Yeah, so that is our show. Thanks for listening. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Alexa, Amazon Music, fandompost.com. You can find us on social media. We're still on Twitter and Facebook, and only Twitter and Facebook. I have no idea what social media is going to look like in the rest of the year, but we are going with the old ones for now. So find us on there at Fandom Post Radio if you want to do any sort of social media interaction, following, sharing. It's always appreciated. Get in contact with us via that or email at fandompostradio@gmail.com. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter technically. I don't think it's related to everyone trying to leave Twitter, but I haven't really thought about Twitter in like months. So don't expect me to be posting there or looking at anything ever. But you can find me on fanpost.com. Like I mentioned, I had a little brief interview with Masao Maruyama about Pluto at Anime Expo, and I wrote a little bit about him and his career around that as well. So check that out, and I've started reviewing some of the season simulcast. So I did just write up my review of Zom 100 yesterday, so you can go read that. And yeah, I did the first episode of Undead Girl Murder Farce. So I don't know if I will review every episode of that, but first one is up. So yeah, that's me.
You can find me on Twitter at VideoGameP3 for as long as Twitter continues to exist. You can find my writing fandompost.com, pieceofanime.com when I remember to update, and in Crunchyroll features.
Nice. Darius, you hear ya? Maybe. And you can find Darius. You can Google him. Darius Washington. He's on Twitter somewhere. He writes for us too. Find him around. He likes to tell people that you can find him on Facebook, which most people don't publicly advertise. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook too, I guess. There's probably no other Kestrel Swifts on there, so sure. You want to stalk me?
Yeah, you can find me there too. See my blank profile and everything.
Yeah. So that is our show about Anime Expo and all that news. We will be back sometime in the next few weeks, probably talking about this new season, all the new stuff it has to offer. So yeah, until then, go read our stuff, catch up on past episodes, follow us, and all that good stuff. See you next time.